AI is everything, everywhere, all at once.
UB has been willing to invest in this department, see the need, and really give it what it needs to get moving very quickly.
UB Tech Talk from University at Buffalo, the State University of New York.
Hi everyone, my name is Atri, Rudra. I play the role of the inaugural chair of the new Department of AI and Society, and also the Katherine Johnson Chair in AI.
I'm Jeff Good. I am the Associate Chair of the new Department of AI and Society, and I have an additional appointment in the Department of Linguistics.
My name is Heath Tuttle. I'm the Vice President and CIO here at the University at Buffalo. Atri and Jeff, first of all, thank you very much for joining us today and talking about artificial intelligence, kind of in general, but also more specifically, the Department of AI and Society here at the University of Buffalo. Why do you think now is the right time at UB to launch the Department of AI and Society?
I will steal from the title of the great 2022 movie and say AI is everything, everywhere, all at once. It really is that. And to give where credit is due, I'm stealing this line from Kathy Pham, who first used it. And so the idea is it's everywhere, right? And you just can't get around it. Like many of us have apprehensions of what AI, the harms AI can do, but I think we are at a point we can't be like, pretend that it doesn't exist, right? And so now if you look at it, what's driving AI these days, it's very much so from a commercial point of view, like the narrative of AI is being driven by tech companies, right? Which is fine. I mean, that's where like all of these large models, like as in academia, we wouldn't have been able to build a ChatGPT, right? We don't have the resources, right? However, what that means is the company's incentive structures are to make money, as it should be, and that's what they're doing. It's perfectly fine. But what that means is now that AI is everywhere in society, the incentive structures are not quite in place for companies to kind of think society first, right? And so typically what happens is you're thinking bottom line first and then society. But it is important for society to play a pivotal part in how new AI systems are built, right? And academia is the perfect place to do it, right? Because that's what we are supposed to do, right? UB is a public institution. We have a solemn goal to kind of help society locally, but more globally as well, right? And so in that sense, being in academia is a perfect place to start conversations or like build these new systems where society comes first, right? And I have to say, like, I've been an academic for 18 years now, right? And academics, even within ourselves, love to complain how conservative academia tends to be, right? It's like they don't take risk. And again, all of that, there are good reasons to do that, right? But kind of saying, oh, let's do a new department of AI and society. There's no such department, at least none in the US that we're aware of. So I'm super happy to be at a place that took this risk, right? So, and I think it's going to pay off.
We want to make sure that there is a public space and a research space that is engaging with AI. But unlike the internet where we had time to grow into it, we don't really have that same opportunity to slowly sort of evolve with it and see where it's going and then see where it goes. We have to actually engage more directly with it, and we need to do it quickly because it's already there. So I think that's one of the why now reasons. And then there's a related one. I mean, it just has to do with student opportunities as well. They also need it quickly, and so we don't have that same luxury. Again, probably if you look at this grand scheme of human history, the internet was not a slow rollout. It was a very fast rollout, but it happened more or less on academic time. And this one is not happening on academic time. So I think why now? Maybe we're already a year or two too late, but you know, we need to get on that now. And I think that's it's sort of exciting that UB has been willing to invest in this department, see the need, and really give it what it needs to get moving very quickly.
AI and Society pairs coursework with departments like political science, linguistics, right? Philosophy with AI studies. How will that kind of unique pairing impact our students?
It's traditionally very hard to kind of meld kind of the CS style AI work with kind of expertise from disciplines that look into society, like art, sciences, social sciences. Like these are disciplines that have been looking at society for centuries, like way longer than computer science even existed, right? And so, but it's really hard to kind of combine these two, again, within traditional disciplinary bounds, right? So one of the core missions of AI in society is its teaching component, which is like we want to kind of meld these things, two things together. Like how do we provide coursework? How do we provide spaces for students from different areas to come and talk to each other? And so I think like one of the things that we're really excited about are these courses which are intentionally have like the AI component, but also the society component, right? And again, some of these courses we will see, like we have this capstone course, which we are very excited about, where we have this AI plus X programs, like I just said, in philosophy, political science, economics, geography, kind of getting all of these things together to build some system at the end of the thing. We haven't done it yet. We're very excited about it.
I would think that the unique way that we are tackling that also is very exciting for the faculty.
One of the things that was really gratifying to see in this whole process of setting up the department has been the incredible excitement from faculty everywhere, like all around the campus, right? And so like we have been incredibly blessed to have support faculty members. And like we were hiring faculty members last summer, it was only Jeff and me. Like we couldn't do the hiring, right? But there we got Vinny Chen, Eva Jarek, and NQU from different departments came in and did it over the summer when this was not even counting for this service, right? And so like, and this is just wanted to like one concrete example, but we have seen this throughout like this process of creating these degrees and coursework. There's an incredible amount of excitement, and people, especially faculty, have been incredibly generous with the time to help us do that. Again, this is what academia is supposed to be, right? And so it's been great, like being in this position, kind of everything that I thought and being an academic would be like experiencing those things. Not that I didn't earlier, but it's kind of like all of those things coming together at the same time. Yeah. And similarly, I think the excitement for faculty is going to transfer to students as well, right?
You know, UBIT and the new Department of AI and Society have an extremely exciting partnership, right? Because we created the BullsAI platform. It's designed to bring AI right into the classroom and the work that you all are doing in the department. How will BullsAI be different than other platforms like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or Claude or things like that?
Yeah, I should say, it's been really great sort of to observe the beginnings of this partnership. And I think it's just to really see UBIT work directly with faculty to figure out, how it should be different. I think when I think about my own usage, when I've experimented with Copilot or ChatGPT and Claude as well, these are general purpose tools meant for kind of a mass audience. And they have their real strengths, but they're always going to be general purpose tools meant for a mass audience. And so they're not necessarily going to be optimized for the sort of specific teaching and research needs that maybe even don't have right now a great commercialization, right? That's part of what research and teaching is. We're supposed to be at the cutting edge. We don't know what's going to work or what's not going to work, but we need to try out and test out different AI tools to sort of support these things. So one of the nice things is we're in the university environment where maybe someone needs to try something to teach students. Maybe it will never be commercially viable, but we need to test it out anyway and see what's going to work or not. So ChatGPT, Copilot will never support that, right? Because they have a different model. So I think it's going to be useful in that respect. It allows us to do those kind of niche things that universities do well and need to do and explore and give that space for failure in addition to sort of hoping for kind of success there. I think also more concretely, though, when you think about the day-to-day needs of a faculty member or instructor, they want to teach in ways that give students exposure and use of the tools that they need to do to learn, but they don't necessarily want to have to deal with the sort of intricacies of setup on everyone's laptop, getting all the right tools loaded. Maybe they can't even load those things easily on their own faculty laptops because of security concerns, right? So what you do is you've created this curated but very accessible university space so that these instructors can set up the exact environment they need to teach those classes, right? And they can tell the students, you're going to go to this place, it's going to have what you need. And we're already hearing, good things about it. I think there's a professor in geography, Leo Wang. He had actually said that they were able to do things, I think, in BullsAI that was harder using some Google services that he had access to, research services, because your team was able to sort of get the particular things he needed in the space he needed and to sort of customize it and optimize it.
What excites you both the most about students, faculty, and researchers experimenting with that BullsAI platform?
What this allows students, researchers, and faculty members to do is to kind of get access to some of these computational things that wouldn't have been accessible to people outside of a CS thing, right? So writing pieces of code to do things, right? It's like traditionally you have to take like CS1, CS2, like at least 2 courses to get to a point where you can write your piece of code, right? Now these tools can help you kind of write those scripts, right? And again, I want to be very, very clear because I have some colleagues who, and I agree with them, who have very strong feelings about this, right? Because it's like, I definitely don't want people to think that what I'm saying is, they should just go and use these things to generate code and put it out there in the world. Like there are lots of problems with that. Like there are a whole host of security issues and things like that, which you don't want to do. Which is why having something like BullsAI, as Jeff said, like having a sandbox where you can do stuff and not have to worry about like, someone kind of having a security breach is incredibly powerful, right? So I think this gives sandbox for folks to try out tools that was just not possible before. Mm-hmm. Now they can try it out in a safe environment, make sure it works well. And once they have tried it out, like then maybe kind of try to put it out there if that's the appropriate thing to do.
What I'm really kind of excited to see is what's going to happen 3 or 4 years from now as faculty have experimented with it. And maybe there's going to be something that started off as a BullsAI project for a class, but it worked really well. Then there's going to be the problem of taking it off the BullsAI platform that was designed for teaching and moving it to the research space. But I want that problem, right? We want to see this problem where it became this place where the students became so excited that they did things we didn't expect. And then we can move it out. And then I know there's also maybe some people listening to this, they have concerns about data privacy with these commercial sites. Well, we've solved that also. This is our UB service provider. Like the data there will stay at UB. So it also solves that practical problem that I know is in a lot of people's minds. And so I think it's been great so far. And I want to just kind of see, I think as more students enroll in these courses, as the programs build out, hopefully you'll have the capacity to sort of manage all of the requests that will come in. And I think it'll just be a really interesting space for experimentation and student support.
If there's one thing that I want people to be careful about when they're using kind of general purpose ChatGPT, the privacy is a huge concern, right? You can never be sure, even if you kind of click a checkbox that says your data would be private, not clear, right? You're not going to read through 20-page document to figure out where all the loopholes are, right? In fact, there have been studies that actually show that, even though they said this, like what they're actually doing is completely different, right? So I want people to be very careful about the privacy of the data that they're using, right?
Yeah, because if it's not clear, I mean, you know better, but BullsAI is completely university, completely UB owned, right? So it's totally in the institution, right? Everything is staying in data on hard drives inside the institution. And not only do we trust the institution to be ethical, but there's also legal responsibilities for the data that's there. So it really is a much, much safer space.
And I think what you're both talking about too from the privacy perspective just goes back to the importance of an academic department like we've created, right? Because it's about educating people about that, right? And finding the right ways and what resonates with people to really understand what they're putting out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you look at all the students who are wandering around the University of Buffalo campus, what kind of skills or technical skills, but sometimes not technical skills like logic skills, thinking through problems, right, that kind of stuff, do you believe will matter most for students as they enter the workforce with AI, right, as a big piece of that?
At least in my lifetime, the way education has worked has been you specialize. So it's like you pick one discipline, stick with it for your entire career, right? And that's what started for me. It was computer science. But if you look back at history, like, if you go back centuries, people were polymaths, right? And so actually, to be honest, I always thought it had to do something with math. But polymath really just means like multiple disciplines, right? You're not like focused on one thing. So I think we are now getting to a point where we need people to be polymaths again, right? And so what I would say for students is kind of think along those lines, right? AI does have the potential of creating polymaths because now you can use these tools to kind of at least get some semblance of how things would work in another discipline. Like you don't necessarily have to take a full course in political science or economics to kind of, you can at least get some amount of basic. And again, want to be very clear, right? It's like, I'm not saying that that's all you should do, but like in some sense, the barrier to entry has gone down a little bit, right? And so that I think now allows the possibility for us to be polymaths again, right? And I think, so what I would recommend to students is make sure that you have your major. Of course, you should focus on it. but go a bit more outward, right? So if you, for example, are in the arts, humanities, and social sciences, of course, I'm biased, I think, but they should learn a bit more about AI, right? But definitely for students and more on the AI CS side, I really want them to kind of go beyond computer science, beyond engineering, like kind of look at all of these other kind of disciplines that exist.
We really need to emphasize more higher level or sort of broad conceptual skills that students can apply to new technologies. The technology realm is moving so quickly that if we teach them one tool today, it could be outdated tomorrow. But you think about things like, say, computational or algorithmic thinking, computational fundamentals. When I think about the discourse, that I don't know how true this is accurately around education, I think there has been an emphasis since my time from general education and learning to understand the world broadly well to maybe there's too much of a narrow sort of skills-based framing. Like, did you learn to code in Python? Maybe that was okay in the 90s, maybe in the early aughts. But who knows what the paradigm will be for interacting with computers. And I don't know what it will be in 6 months or 5 years. You still need to know certain kinds of algorithmic thinking. You still need to understand a little bit about how data structures operate and these kinds of high-level things. But when maybe 10 years ago, actually having the skill to type out Python was very valuable, that's going to just get obsolete very quickly. So we need to sort of go back to this idea of broad thinking. The big thing about the AI and Society department, I said a lot about the technical side because that's where a lot of people's fears and concerns are. But we need to do it on the social side too. They need to understand, how do you model the social environment, broadly speaking, so that when a new AI algorithm or tool comes in, you actually have the conceptual toolkit to say, will this treat everyone equally? If it won't, why do I think it will treat some groups unequally? Is the unequal treatment that this algorithm produces actually better or worse than what we're doing now? Because the baseline can be pretty terrible too. And even though we want the tool to be as good as possible, we have to, just because the tool does harm, we need to also balance that harm against, I've just talked to a lot of people recently in AI and healthcare. The US healthcare system has lots of problems. AI could create problems, but we also have to ask, not that we want to do cost-benefit analysis, but in the end, that is, something that has to be done. And what's the toolkit to do that responsibly?
What I'm hoping with kind of these new coursework and what students learn more, who are more interested maybe to begin with, or more of the CS side of, or like the AI side of things, is to be cognizant that, a row in your spreadsheet is actually a person, right? And what does that mean? Like the fact that you reduce them to a row, you have lost stuff, right? And so like, how do you kind of take that into account, right? And so that doesn't mean that you shouldn't run models on numbers, right? But I think what that means is, if you're getting an answer from that model, what does that mean?
There are a lot of people worry about, specifically when we think about our students, right? When they're looking at the job market, what they're going to be walking into, right? Will AI be replacing the work that people need to do in jobs? Other people believe that it's going to create entirely new career paths, new ways of thinking about things. And I think there might be something to both sides of that. But how do you think UB students should be thinking about this balance?
Right. So first of all, I should think is beware of anyone who claims to know what's going to happen, right? So the one thing I would say to students is, if someone is saying AI is definitely going to impact your discipline in this very specific way, you should be like, okay, sure. Like, be very skeptical of what people are saying. And I'm going to date myself with the next thing that I'm going to say, but this does very much reminds me of when the internet was new and upcoming. So I finished my undergrad at the turn of the last century, right? And so in fact, and I tell my students this and they're all shocked. I tell them, actually, Google came out as a research prototype when I was a sophomore in college, right? But lots of the things that's happening now, I see parallels to this. And it's not just me. I've talked to people who were much more at the forefront of kind of this internet thing, and they also said the same thing. And so it is true that things are in turmoil now, right? Because things are happening quite fast. But I don't think people have quite figured out how to use it in a way that is kind of meaningful and kind of is long-term, right? Have the kind of wherewithal to say, okay, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't smell right, like kind of interrogate it in an interactive manner. And you can only do that if you have the fundamentals down, right? If you will not be able to tell whether a code makes sense or not if you actually have not spent time writing code, not spent time thinking about algorithms, not spent thinking about what does it mean for a code to be correct. But so my advice to students is kind of like going back to my polymath thing and fundamentals, right? Like kind of get to understand fundamentals. Previously, I used to say in computer science only, but now I'm like, well, try to get fundamentals in another area of society.
I understand there are some students who face financial constraints. They need to really get through very quickly. They have limited ability to sort of experiment. But if you have especially the 4-year university time frame, and in a US university system, you have a lot of tools very often, especially in some majors, to take courses outside of your core area and to really build up those knowledge sets. And I think we forget, if you're sort of embedded in the US system the whole time, you actually don't realize what an amazing opportunity it is and what a distinctive feature of the US higher education system. So I would tell students, if you're focused on literature, try to take a math class. If you're focused on the arts, maybe take a data science class. If you're a computer scientist and you can fit in an arts class, do that, and just try to use it to just round out what you're doing. You might discover you're actually much more interested in the other topic. But even if it turns out that you stick in your career path, you're going to have this kind of this broader base. And I think having that knowledge base, one way or another, is going to help you deal with what might be a highly disruptive job market. And also, what might be, if things really change, maybe a more collaborative job market. I don't think we can anticipate what the workplace teams are going to look like in 10 years. They might look very different. And maybe you took that one art history course, and maybe it's just going to help you build that initial connection with someone who comes in from the arts on the team that you never thought you would actually use, but it's going to kind of create that bridge for you. So I guess I would just say, on some level, forget about the AI for a second and just think about all the opportunities that a university like UB offers.
What do you see in the next 5 years for the Department of AI and Society?
So I don't know exactly what it will look like, but what I do know is we will be in a good place. And the reason why I say that is I have incredible colleagues, Jeff included, but all of my other colleagues. They're incredible people thinking about incredible things in ways that I personally could never, because my brain is not wired that way. So we have 8 faculty now, and I think I counted once. We have like 7 different disciplines represented. So it just so happens we have 2 PhDs in social work, but other than that, everyone's completely different, right? And so what that brings is this incredible diversity, and not just discipline per se. I mean, that's there, but every discipline has its own norms, its own ways of thinking. So it makes for very interesting faculty meetings, because you literally have everyone thinking completely different ways. But I've been like super thrilled with how things are going. So I'm very upbeat about where we'll be in 5 years. One of the things that I'm really hoping, and I'm confident we'll get there, is going back to what Jeff said at the end, is involving community in all of this. Because to be honest, like the way these models are rolled out is like communities tend to be an afterthought. Like the idea is, I build this model already. Now you tell me whether it works for you or not, right? And so and I'll do some fine tuning at the end, right? Which, in my and the department's opinion, is the wrong way to do it, right? So like the community shouldn't be an afterthought. They should be there from day one. So what I'm hoping in 5 years is we're going to be building systems that are built by society and for society, by communities, right? And the only reason why I'm super bullish about it is because of my colleagues. And I know my colleagues and the students that they're going to train are going to do incredible stuff, right? And so if it comes down to it at the end, like in AI versus humans, I'm betting on the humans.
I really appreciate the time you all spent with us today. Thank you, Atri. Thank you, Jeff, for coming and chatting with us and sharing a little bit about the department and all the wonderful things we're doing at the University of Buffalo in this space.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks for watching this episode of UB Tech Talk. Check out other episodes at buffalo.edu/UBIT/Tech Talk. UB University at Buffalo, the State University of New York. Buffalo.edu, #UBuffalo.